Hello everyone, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the sunshine here at the Balaton Park circuit for day 2 of our round 2 of Ferrari Challenge Europe for 2024. Here we are then about to get qualifying underway for our Copa Shell Am drivers. Some 16 of those drivers will be taking to this very challenging 4.1 kilometer circuit to make the best possible opportunity to give them a grip position will elevate them to success. So we are just around the corner from the Balaton Lake, which is very much a vacation or holiday area of Hungary, and the weather conditions this morning would indicate that. Weather conditions over yesterday would not indicate that necessarily. Here you can see just some of the beautiful scenery or serenery. Does that even exist? The scenery around the area. It's part of our 2024 calendar. As I mentioned, it's round 2. We've already been to Mugello. We're here in Balaton. Up next, we head to Spain and Jerez, and then Portimao in Portugal. Le Castellet in the south of France. Nürburgring for snow in September in Germany. And then, of course, the Finale Mondiale event in Imola, middle of October. So that is a very, very nicely designed calendar for 2024. Every single circuit offering different challenges for our drivers. And the challenge they found here in Hungary was of a brand new circuit, never to my knowledge used before by any of our Ferrari Challenge drivers, even the Valint family. And talking of families, isn't that a beautiful picture? The third one in that little queue there reminds me a little bit of our director, Franco Marcelli. And also Andrea Montali. Look at them. Track temperature 32 degrees. Air temperature 20 degrees. Get back on the script, Dave. And Shintaro Akatsu is ahead of the group, ready to head out on the track, along with the Swiss Scrimpius, I think, who's behind. Oh dear, Nicholas Spalek, save me from my own wit, will you not?
I'm not sure if I can do that. Good morning, everybody. Welcome here to Balaton. We've just seen the calendar, and it's a succession of great holiday destinations, crowned obviously by the Nürburgring, which is drowning in fog as we hear at this very moment. So we're quite happy with having the sunshine here. As you say, it hasn't been that way all week, because with testing and free practice and qualifying and the races yesterday, it was a very different scenery for most of the week and quite changeable. Today, I'm not going to make any predictions because they've been wrong all week, but for the moment we've got lots of sunshine, no rain threatening, and yesterday's qualifying was basically run under the threat of rain with a thick cloud cover, and it was Andreas Koenig and his team, the Go Motorsport Haupt Racing team, who played a perfect game of poker, bluffing, holding on, and then finally putting out the royal flush of pole position in a amazing feat of, well, I don't even know what to call it. It was a very daring strategy.
It was a daring strategy, and Andreas Koenig volunteered to me that it wasn't his idea. It was more to do with the team suggesting this would be the way to go. And in fairness, Andreas Koenig was not without dramas and troubles in the race, Nico. And actually, Manuel Reuter, who is head of the team, by saving those tyres, if you will, by not expending too much rubber during qualifying, it played to the advantage of Andreas Koenig, who had to, for various reasons, and if you didn't watch the race, then I urge you to watch the highlights, because he had to come from the back of the pack in the end, Nico, despite his wonderful qualifying position. And having the rubber available to him to be able to do that meant that he was able to save what could have been a disastrous race for him.
Yeah, and he finished up in P5. Eric Chung was our race winner yesterday. Andrea Levy, P2, and
Mutlu. Sorry, I was just looking at pictures and just talking unnecessarily. You carry on, friend.
And Talal Shahir from Lebanon rounding out the podium yesterday, and we get our qualifying underway. It's 30 minutes of qualifying for our Copa Shell Am. Reminding you that if you followed the Ferrari Challenge for the last few years, which I hope you did, and you will see that, all of a sudden we've got 3 races per weekend. Well, 6 races per weekend, 3 races per day, as we could see the 198 car of Eric Chung, or winner yesterday, being pushed back towards the garage. We've got so many entries here with a new 296 challenge being introduced to the series this year that we had to split the Copper Shell and Copper Shell M into 2 separate sessions, 2 separate races. So we have the Copper Shell M first, then we will have Trofeo Pirelli and Trofeo Pirelli M, and then rounding out qualifying and rounding out the race day later on will be the Copper Shell and our remaining competitors still competing in the 488 challenge, our veteran car, and I say that with the utmost respect for the car and everything that it has won and achieved over the many, many years of its service.
And it won a lot, as we can see. Andreas Koenig in the final stages of preparation. There's Paolo Scudieri, who didn't have a brilliant day yesterday, and he'll be hoping to right the wrongs of yesterday. This is the number 100 car of the Kessel Racing driver Stephen Earle, and this is Henrik Kamstrup that we look at right now. Henrik Kamstrup then, who has a similar hairstyle to myself, and he'll be out there for qualifying in just a few moments. So it's Scrimpy, as we can see there, but this, once again, is Stephen Earle, who drives for the Kessel Racing team. This, though, is the number 120 car of Guy Favet, and here is Zeus Scrimpias. Now, Zeus Scrimpias didn't have a terrible lot of luck in the race yesterday, and there's Pino Frascaro. You can just see there one of our drivers from a different category. He's still driving, campaigning the 488 car, which, as Nico quite rightly said, was such a successful car. All its guys is awesome machine. There's Carlo from the team, keeping an eye on everything as we watch Alvaro Ramos then crossing the timing line and heading into turn number 1 is the 186 car of Jan Sandman, who is a very welcome addition to the Ferrari Challenge Europe. We first met Jan in a Racing Guys in the Winter Challenge, which took place over a fine weekend in Abu Dhabi at the Yas Marina circuit, and provided us with some very dramatic racing action. Jan Sandman was one of those competitors, and so entrenched with the Ferrari Challenge that he has decided to compete for the entire season in 2024 in the Ferrari Challenge Europe, and we are delighted to welcome him. He's a charming young man who is quite clearly very, very talented at the wheel of what is a truly magnificent car. The 296, as Nico alluded, introduced into the Ferrari Challenge this year, and it is a car that has provoked such smiles from our drivers, each and every one of them. Really enjoying the fact that the car is as close to a GT3 car, Nico, as any Ferrari Challenge car has ever been. Apparently, it is utterly wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
having had the privilege. Hint.
Fair play, Will. Yes, and obviously the Jan Sandman selecting a livery that is very much an homage to the 499P hypercar that Ferrari Corsa Clienti runs in the WEC Championship and has run it to the utmost success, including a victory at Le Mans.
And of course that, as we were talking of endurance races, or we were just a moment ago when you were talking about how the fact the Eiffel circuit at the Nürburgring is bathed in fog at the moment. The Le Mans 24 Hour is just well, actually no more than a few days away, really. We're watching yesterday's victor then, Eric Chung, who he didn't have it all his own way in the race yesterday because he had to serve a drive-through penalty, which he did, and he pitched that absolutely perfectly and managed to do his drive-through penalty and retain his lead, having built such a wonderful margin at the front of the pack. And it was a delight to see Eric back on the top step of the podium again. He's one of our more travelled Ferrari Challenge racers, I think it's fair to say. The Japan series, which exists right now as one of our regions of the Ferrari Challenge, once upon a time was called the APAC series, the Asia Pacific series, and Eric used to regularly compete in that, regularly competes in Europe, and he's an ever-present and a very, very competent driver. Zeus Scrimpias, I have to say, Zeus and I in conversation at the end of the Mugello round, as Zeus had said, absolutely no racing experience coming into this Ferrari Challenge, as he goes quickest of anyone right now. He says, I've never done any racing at all. And such was his prowess and performance over that Mugello weekend, Nico, that I took issue with him and I said, have you told me a little fib here? Because you've driven so well, you must have some racing experience. he went to great lengths to explain that he really didn't have, and that is testament to just how good this 296 Ferrari Challenge car is, that he's been able to hit the ground more than running, sprinting I would suggest, and he had a fantastic Mugello weekend. His weekend didn't get off to a brilliant start here in Balaton Park circuit. He'll be hoping to put that right today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of the great things about the Ferrari Challenge is we're talking about Eric Chung, who has, it feels like decades of experience with Ferrari racing and Corsa Clienti and the Challenge. And then there is Zoe Scrimpias, who has minutes of experience.
Yes.
And both run and, both great characters, great people with very different backgrounds, but a shared fascination for the brand and for the competition that's going on, and they share not only this paddock but a great camaraderie already, which is just ever present here in the Ferrari Challenge and in this paddock here at Balaton. And we've seen the calendar earlier, and before we head into the meaningful times part of this qualifying session, have a look at the calendar, pick where you want to go and join us for one of those races. We would love to have you here.
Yes, you would be made most welcome. It is and it's a really interesting paddock as well, Nico. Yes, of course, the primary function is the racing that's going on track, but there are always lavish cars on display, and I think I can speak fairly about every single driver in the paddock who are very welcoming and very accommodating, and take time to talk to race fans, and yeah, it is a joy to be part of it. So Scrimpias remains right at the top of the chart. He's set a 136.800, and there's the telemetry we can see from the car. As you can see, he's in 5th gear, climbing into 6th, and 237 kilometers per hour before he had to brake for this turn. Into 3rd gear, back on the gas once again, up to 4th right now as he carries as much speed as possible. You can see the red line rev limiter there, just hovering around 6,500 up to 7,000 revs right now as Zoe Scrimpias gets to 224 kilometers per hour before having to brake for this chicane, where track limits can be something of an issue here, as we found out yesterday. A number of drivers being penalised for track limits infringements. Zoe Scrimpias then continuing on his way with a 136.800 that he has posted, and this Sector 1 and Sector 2 cumulative time would suggest that he's not going to trouble his own time. Somebody that has troubled him is Andrea Levy, who has gone P1 with a 137.617. It's very, very close. It's nearly 2/10 quicker than the time posted by Zoe Scrimpias, who now is relegated to P2 from P1 in this qualifying session, which has 21.5 minutes remaining. Thank you so much.
Yes, just to give you an idea, now we're at a 137.6. Yesterday's pole time was a 135.8. It was the same time of the day, but dark clouds overhead, so the sun will, we expect, make the track quicker rather than slower. As is usually the case, on a Sunday for qualifying, the drivers come out with Saturday's rubber and get themselves into a rhythm, get the car into a rhythm, do maybe some minor setup changes if they felt like Saturday wasn't ideal yet, and then they will come in and put on a new set of Pirelli P0s. There is a limited amount of tires that the drivers can use per weekend, and that means they will put on a fresh set later today. That's how it usually works. Let's see if today is a proof of that concept, or we will be surprised. I think that image kind of lends some credibility to what I said, which is rare enough.
Yeah, you do yourself a disservice, but you're absolutely right, and we are expecting to see into the pit lane probably the car of Muklu Tarzev and Andrea Levy then, who is P1 at the moment. Interesting to get those times from yesterday, and I tend to agree with what Nico has said, that the temperature on track and the sun beating down on the tarmac should encourage, I would suggest, even quicker times than we saw in qualifying yesterday, but they will come probably in the second half of the session. So it's Levi from Scrimpias, from Akatsu, from Kamstrup, from Guy Fabet. Then it's Roland Hertner, Jan Sandman, Eric Chung, Tal El-Sher, and Anu Debussy, who is another driver that we met for the first time in the Winter Challenge at Abu Dhabi. And Hassan Debussy, like Jan Sandman, choosing to adopt a full season entry into the Ferrari Challenge Europe. So it's not often I get things right, but on this occasion I think I was right in that Muklu Tazev was the driver that was coming in, and he, I think, is probably going to be one of the first, Nico, to go out on a fresh set of Pirelli P0s for this qualifying session. Stephen Earle is not going to be far behind in the number 100 car, and the qualifying session will continue for a further 19 minutes with Talal Sher currently running P9. So let's expect some improvements from the Scuderia Lebanon driver.
Absolutely. As we already said, he got onto the podium with P3 yesterday, and he's certainly going to look for at least as good a result today. Currently P9, but we expect the times to come tumbling down over the remaining 18.5 minutes plus whatever is left of a lap after that. And Shahir, minimal improvement, but going for it once again, obviously. The Akatsu car, the 115, currently in P3, so good in terms of a banker. But again, there is that new set of fresh black gold.
Yes. Talking of fresh, I always think the Henrik Kamstrup car with the super shiny blue colours on that 296 looks awesome. This is Andrea Levy then, the Rosso Corsa racer, who, as Nico quite rightly pointed out, is having a good time of it at the moment in qualifying, but we are expecting even quicker times to come in the final section of this qualifying session for our Copa Am drivers driving here at the Balaton Park circuit in Hungary.
Absolutely. Right now, really a little bit of a calm on the track. Only 5 cars currently out.
Forgive me. That looked like Daniel Mancinelli, coaching perhaps Hassan Debussy. Daniel has extraordinary racing ability and extraordinary hair, which is why I think it is him. I hope I'm right as our camera comes round.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Daniel and I have a similar travel patterns in that we're often in North America for Ferrari Challenge as well as here in Europe. And yeah, great guy.
One of the many similarities.
Yes, and a very talented young driver, Nico, who of course had so much success in the Ferrari Challenge in the dim and distant when I was sort of getting towards when I first joined the Challenge, which was a couple of years ago now.
A couple of years ago, yeah. Both very talented. One a great driver and great coach, and well,
Yeah,
you can describe your own talent.
The other isn't.
Andreas Koenig is also a great talent, and sorry. Let's get back to it. As we already said, he left it very late yesterday, and like yesterday, today, he is at this point in time at the very bottom of our timing screen, and you know, sometimes the daring strategy works. It has been proven that it doesn't always work, because red flags can put a stoppage to the action, and if you're right in the middle of getting up to speed or on your first flying lap, and then it's a red flag and you have to get all through that process of warming up the Pirelli P0s to their optimal operational window, and it's only like 5 or 6 minutes remaining, traffic can be a problem.
Yes.
And you only have 1 or 2 shots, and well, the team knows what they're doing, and they proved that yesterday. And with 15 minutes, 45 seconds remaining, Andreas Koenig is currently in the pit lane. Mutlu Tazev isn't. He's one of the few drivers who are enjoying the fact that there is little traffic. Slight improvement from P14 to P12. And if you look at the left-hand side of the screen, you can see the Ps, which are indication that the car is in pit lane. The O's means, oh, he's on an out lap. And that means not currently setting fast times, but getting there.
Ridiculous grip. Remember that being uttered to me in the headphones many, many years ago. Here we can see the 171 car of Andrea Levy then having that new set of rubber put on. That is the Guy Favre car just coming out of the garage then. And earlier on he was right at the sharp end of qualifying. He's currently P6. And this is Paolo Scudieri. Now, Paolo is another driver that had a tough time of it yesterday, and we'll be hoping to right the wrongs of yesterday today in the lovely blue and red Samo car, the Ferrari Challenge 296 car. Now, Paolo Scudieri has really, really come on as a driver. It's fantastic to watch. And, Paolo is a truly lovely gentleman. And this is Andreas Koenig. Now, the strategy the team played yesterday played right into the hands of Andreas Koenig, which is more than can be said for the start of the race for him. So, even so, in my opinion, he really proved his worth in terms of coming back and being able to bank at least a points-earning position in the race. And Andreas will be hoping to go from his really rather lowly P16 position in qualifying at the moment by dint of him having not set a time. But now, as you can see, he's taken completely different lines around the track as he's gradually, as Nico has indicated, bringing those Pirelli tyres up to temperature, and then he'll be on for an outlap. And I suspect that the modus operandi will be similar to yesterday. Minimise the time spent in qualifying, try and bank a really, really good lap, park the car in the pit.
That sounds like a very apt strategy, and it didn't quite work out, as you said yesterday, but it wasn't due to his tire management, that is for sure. Pino Frascara and his wife having conversations ahead of Pino going out onto the track a little later in the morning for his qualifying session in the 488 challenge, if I don't misremember that. He is one of the drivers who is still competing in the car that has been a hallmark of the series for so many years, and there is Mutlu Tazev, who is pushing, and he put in a very, very good first sector, quicker than our current pole time. It's only by a tenth or less than a tenth, but certainly on pace for an improvement as he rounds the corner here, and then that means he is effectively now coming towards the final chicane and the final few turns towards the finish line. Second sector still good in the area of a new pole time. There is that chicane on Friday evening. They still painted new track limits onto that part of the track. Now the last double left and then a right hand kink, which Mutlu Tazev takes now, and then it's full chap flat onto the start finish straight. P3.
3.5 tenths down on the Andrea Levy time, but he will be hoping to improve yet again. Mutlu Tazev then P3. It's Levy from Skimpias, from Tazev, from Akatsu, from Kamstrup. That's the top 5 at the moment, and this is inside the Emil Frey garage, where, as you can see, the engineers are studying all the data on the screens. And here comes yesterday's race winner, Eric Chung. He's on an improvement trajectory. S1 is coloured purple because S1 for Eric Chung was faster than anyone. Make that 2 sectors as Sector 1 and Sector 2. He colours in that really rather attractive colour if you're a racing driver. So, and at the moment, Eric Chung is languishing down there in P10, but he's throwing this 296 around this Balaton Park circuit as he looks for a P1 position in qualifying. He'll be buoyed with the confidence and success that he had yesterday. That surely must be worth a few 100s. Well, it's worth more than a few 100s. It's 3 1,000ths in terms of qualifying as he goes to the top of the chart, Nico. It could not be closer. It is the width of a small piece of paper, isn't it, between P1 and P2 at the moment?
Yes, absolutely. I don't think these will be the final times, as the drivers are still getting up, going through the motions and going through the rhythm of getting the car and the tires and the brakes up to the perfect window as we follow Hassan Debussy, who put it on to... Oh, sorry. Is it?
No, I don't think that is.
No.
Forgive me, I don't like to correct you because it is Louis Peruskia, another well-travelled Ferrari Challenge driver who races here and in North America. In fact, Louis and myself were just a couple of weeks ago in the Laguna Seca circuit, famed, of course, for its corkscrew sequence of turns, where I have to say the weather conditions were not quite as nice as they are today here in Hungary, which is remarkable when you consider where that is, as Henrik Kamstrup now goes quickest, Nico, having taken 9 100ths out of Eric Chung's time, and it's a 1:37.520. So you were right, the quicker times are still to come.
Yeah, absolutely. Eric Chung, purple. Hassan Debussy, purple. Shintaro Akatsu, purple. Andreas Koenig, purple sector. So expect lots of movement over the next few moments. And Andreas Koenig, right on cue, puts it on provisional pole position, a 1:37.0. I dare say we will hit not only the 1:36, but potentially go back into the 1:35. So every lap counts, and traffic now at this stage of qualifying is going to be very, very critical. Having a clear lap as Shintaro Akatsu improves. And the other thing that's critical is track limits, because you can have an amazing lap, but if you run foul of those at one turn, the entire lap doesn't count. There is no time penalty. You don't get a tenth or so added. No, the entire lap doesn't count. Doesn't matter if it's a 1:31, whatever, it doesn't count. Eric Chung with a good lap. just 4/1000ths off the pace once again. But Andreas Koenig, he is pushing once again. So is Shintaro Akatsu, Henry Kemstrup. And there is Zoe Scrimpias. Not on this lap, I dare say. His second sector wasn't anything like competitive, but he's going to go out again. There is Henry Kemstrup, and I think he also had to abandon that lap because of traffic. Zoe Scrimpias with a little bit of an improvement, but not up to the capacity and ability that he has. And there is a replay that is racing. Oh, and that is indeed a contact, and it was between Guy Thor, who I don't think saw the driver and the car coming up behind him. But I think fortunately no major issues, as Luis Peruskia is getting ready potentially to finish this qualifying session. 8.5 minutes remaining. Certainly going for a break, as Shintaro Akatsu has put it on provisional pole, and there is the car that we're talking about, Dave.
Yes, and the margins we're beginning to see are, significant margins, 2/10, 3/10 quicker. So it leads us to the conclusion that you brought, that the track is getting better as every minute goes by. Every single lap, of course, allows a little bit more rubber to go down on the track. And here comes Zoe Scrimpias on something of a charge now. Zoe Scrimpias, who was right at the sharp end of qualifying times earlier on in the session, finds himself relatively languishing down there in P6. Well, he'll be hoping to improve upon that as he brakes now for the chicane. This is the Zoe Scrimpias car and driver combo that made such a fascinating entrance into the Ferrari Challenge at Mugello just a couple of weeks or so ago. And Zoe Scrimpias, who will be hoping to really come good today, and he does that by posting a 1:36.437, and that lap was compromised, so that we know that he has got even greater pace in that car. And the lap was compromised by traffic that he had to get by. Now, no one held him up in any regard, but of course, just when you know that you've got to get past a car in qualifying and you see that, it just does affect your concentration and means that your lap was not optimized. So if Zoe Scrimpias can deliver an improvement with a non-optimized lap, I hope that just leads to what I was saying, in that there's probably an even quicker lap to come from him.
Yes, and I think we will see lots of more quick lap as Shintaro Akatsu just finishes one lap, which isn't an improvement for him. Eric Chung, he's also going for it. 2 personal best sectors, so we expect him to improve from his current position. Paolo Scudieri currently languishing in P16 at the very bottom of our timing screen. We expect him to make a mark and move up the order. Eric Chung is not moving up the order. That last sector wasn't something to write home about. Zoe Scrimpias, first sector okay, second sector purple once again. He is pushing, as you said.
And we pick up on the Zoe Scrimpias car here in replay as he really throws this 296 challenge car through those chicanes. Nico made the point that we noted actually as the engineers were painting the new white lines in the final chicane, because turn 12 is where we have seen all sorts of issues with regards to track limits, and well, track limits proving to be an issue not only in the race but also in qualifying as well. And Zoe Scrimpias has delivered a 1:36.2, which was his last lap, and quicker than anyone, and 3/10 quicker than Shintaro Akatsu, who is P2 at the moment. So it's a good qualifying session for the Ineco Ripardo Corsa Ram team at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Currently in P1 and P2, but we expect more challenges to come, and one of those is Jan Sandman, who is just crossing the finish line, P13 for the time being, and that's where he stays. Zoe Scrimpias again going for it, and again with an excellent, blisteringly quick first sector. Others who are going are Eric Chung, Tal Shahir also with a good first sector. So expect the standings that we have on the left-hand side of your screen to change, and change very rapidly, with almost every car crossing the finish line. 4 minutes, 40 seconds remaining.
Yes, it's not long, and you need to pitch it perfectly. And we go on to the pit wall with the Ineco Ripardo Corsa Ram team, and just see what it's like from being in the team management position there of trying to urge your drivers on, and one driver that's being urged plenty is this man. Zoe Skrimpias then brakes now for this turn, final sequence of turns, and heads towards the line now, having done purples in both sectors. And well, sector 3 was not to his liking, and his last lap was about a tenth and a bit down on his previous lap. So Zoe Skrimpias did not improve on that occasion. Now, with 4 minutes remaining on the clock, there are not going to be too many more laps available to our drivers that are out there. Out of position at the moment, may I say, Eric Chung possibly, certainly Henrik Kamstrup, and potentially also the likes of Paolo Scudieri, who is way down the order.
Yeah, and he's not currently doing a quick pace, so whatever is up with him or the car, we don't quite know, but he's certainly not up to his usual standard. Tahal Shahir again with a very good first sector. He is certainly still pushing. Andreas Koenig is still pushing, so it's not all done. We're in that phase where some of the drivers will decide that whatever improvement they can get, potentially, would take too much out of the tires, and they'll just say, well, you know, it's just not worth it pushing again. But for others, their current position just isn't acceptable for them, and Kamstrup, Tarzev, Shahir and Koenig probably among those who will subscribe to that rationale. Hassan Debussy just finishing P9.
His lap has been deleted.
Yes.
As has the lap time from car number 159, which is the car of Roland Hurtner. Roland having a good race yesterday. So at the moment it is Zoe Skrimpias from Shintaro Akatsu and Andreas Koenig. They are the top 3. This is Talal Sher, as Nico said. He would want to improve, and unfortunately he was very nearly a second down on a previous time, so therefore has not improved. Here's Shintaro Akatsu, who is improving, Nico. Sector 1 is coloured purple, so he's got traffic, but I think it's far enough ahead that it won't necessarily compromise this lap. And this won't be the last lap potentially available to Shintaro. He should be able to cross the line and get at least another lap in. So Shintaro Akatsu then brakes now, literally throws this 296. There you can see the traffic and how that does impact you, because it just breaks your focus and concentration for a moment. And proof of that is the fact that Sector 2 is not a purple sector, or indeed a blue sector.
Yeah, and he also exceeded track limits, and maybe he just eased up as a result of being notified that actually, turn 6, so that was fairly early in the lap, and
fair point.
Probably his team will have told him, well, no point in pushing this lap. And again, he's currently P2. There is not, he might drop down one position, but is there a real benefit in pushing through the tires to their maximum in this quali session for maybe one spot, and then having to do a 30-minute race, or being allowed to do a 30-minute race, but having the tires last 30 minutes? Not necessarily. Zoe Skrimpias, Shintaro Akatsu, what do I know? Both purple first sectors. I mean, they are still going for it. 1 minute remaining.
Zoe Skrimpias, though, he strikes me as the sort of character that 99% is never going to be enough. It's got to be 100%. And if I have to wrestle the 19mm nut off the hub, I'm going to do that in terms of absolutely pushing to the max here. Shintaro Akatsu is doing exactly the same, Nico. Push. So 2 purple sectors that we can see from each of the drivers. Now for Zoe Skrimpias, Sector 2 was not on the trajectory that he wants. Now it doesn't necessarily matter. You don't have to have every sector coloured purple. The setup of the car is always a compromise, as well. Zoe Skrimpias was actually very nearly 9/10 down on his previous best time. He can go again. And whether he chooses to do so, I think he is going to push. And here comes Shintaro Akatsu, about to break the timing beam, and he too down, Nico.
Yes, and once again, track limits. We're now, time has elapsed at this very moment. Checkered flag is out. Tahal Shahir, Eric Chung are among those, but Eric Chung's second sector just wasn't quite good enough. Zoe Skrimpias is going again. He doesn't trust that pole position.
No.
He doesn't trust it quite yet. And Tahal Shahir indeed is challenging once again. He is going for it. Although again, the second sector isn't indicative of a palpable threat to pole position.
Where has Where has Zois Skrimpias 136.200? I mean, he's got a very nearly a 4/10 advantage over Shintaro Ekatsu. Here is Talal then. His middle sector was not where he would like it to be, but it is an improvement by 2 places. He goes up to P3, so a second row start for Talal. Here's Skrimpias then. You just look at the car and you can see from the shape of the car around the turns that he is giving it everything, and then decides, do you know what, I'm not improving, I'm coming into the pit lane, my session is done.
Well, there may be the team who, and you always say motorsport is a team sport, it's not only the drivers, maybe their team said, no more threats, no point in finishing it, just bring it home.
Yes.
There is nobody out there who can challenge your pole time, and Zois Skrimpias back on pole position. He put it on pole on his maiden race, or his maiden race day back in Mugello, and took the win in race 2 there. Led the championship coming here, and he puts another point in the book for his championship chase. I mean, we're talking about a rookie. It's just so remarkable. So remarkable.
It's testament, though, to what the Ferrari Challenge can do for you. It's a very welcoming and developing environment. You have top teams, top coaches, top car, top racing circuits. You can make a difference even if you are a rookie, and Zois Skrimpias is indeed indicative proof of that, I would suggest.
100%. Well, that was a very, very entertaining qualifying session under the sunshine here at Balaton Park Raceway. Getting our Sunday action underway, and we've got lots more. 2 more qualifyings and obviously 3 races, and Copper Shell M will kick off the racing early this afternoon. Race start is 2 p.m.
Yes, make sure you can join us for that if you can. I'm sure we're going to get the confirmation of the classification from our qualifying in just a few moments from now. Zois Skrimpias, though, Shintaro Ekatsu, Talal Sha'er, Andreas Koenig. He's not where he would want to be. It's still second row start, and he can do damage from there, I'm sure, Nico.
Yeah, and we get an indication on our timing screen saying how many track limits infringement each driver had, and it doesn't really matter all that much here, except for the fact that your lap is disallowed. But Zois Skrimpias, he's really giving it everything. He did a lot of laps, to be fair, 16 of them, but 8 track limit infringements means that he did play with the limits and sometimes went over it, but he stayed within it often enough to get this result.
P1 for Zois Skrimpias ahead of Shintaro Ekatsu. Then it was Talal Sha'er, Andreas Koenig, Andrea Levy, Eric Chung, Henrik Kamstrup, Mutlu Tazev. They occupy the first 4 rows of our grid, as it will be this afternoon, ahead of Hassan Debussy, Jan Sandman, Stephen Earl, Guy Fave, Roland Hertner, Alvaro Ramos, and Louis Peruskia in P15. And a non-meaningful time from Paolo Scudieri means he's going to have some overtaking to do in the race come this afternoon. Thank you so much for watching our Copa Shalam qualifying, and we have more qualifying sessions to come as well as the races this afternoon. Bye-bye for now. Hello everyone, welcome to Balaton Park Circuit. Here in Hungary for Trofeo Pirelli qualifying, our second qualifying session for our Trofeo Pirelli cars. Qualified yesterday, of course, for the race yesterday. Qualifying today will set the grid for the race to come a little bit later on today. We have a mix of Pirelli and Pirelli AM drivers. The Pirelli drivers with the red strip across the top of the windscreen, the AM drivers with the white strip across the top of the windscreen. We are just within a stone's throw of the Balaton Lake, which is very much a touristic area of Hungary. And the weather today, thus far, is indicative of vacation. Track temperature is 34 degrees, the air temperature is 21 degrees, 59% humidity, and very little wind to speak of. And you can just see to the left-hand side of that picture the new hotel under construction, which regrettably was not ready for our arrival here for the Ferrari Challenge, but will be in future events to come of that, I feel sure. So, yeah, 30 minutes on the clock for our drivers who are champing at the bit to get out there on track. It was Giacomo Altoe yesterday that was successful and victorious from pole to checkered flag. Young driver making his name in the Ferrari Challenge, as indeed are so many young drivers. And it was Andrew Morrow who took his first win in the Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli AM category. I say his first win in Europe. He's certainly used to winning because he is the current UK Pirelli champion. We could also see just very briefly there Luca Engsler, another young whippersnapper out in the car this weekend, and there is Giacomo Altoe, who did the deal yesterday, Nico, and was very impressive and really did not put a foot wrong.
No, absolutely, and he did a lot of the work in qualifying because he put it on pole, and from there on out he won the race. And this is a great segue to our qualifying session because obviously qualifying sets the grid for the race, and the higher up you are, the better your chances are of winning, especially on a track like this, which is already getting renowned to be quite narrow. And while overtaking is possible, if you don't have to do it, even better.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Having track position seems to be everything here. And the track position that Giacomo Altoe got yesterday was exactly the right one, P1. So the 30-minute session is normally run as follows. Drivers will go out on a set of tyres from yesterday just to get their eye in and to get the car set up nicely. Then generally they will come in and take a new set of tyres, maybe for the second half of the qualifying session, to then set their qualifying lap. The advantage of so doing is maintaining tyre longevity for the race to come. But of course they will go out early on and hope to bank a lap at least, so at least they have got a lap in qualifying done and dusted, because one can never be sure, Nico, of what might happen during the qualifying session. We have had suspensions, we have had a number of track limits warnings where drivers' laps are taken away, and the thing is, when you invest an entire lap at your very, very best, you're taking a lap out of the tyres, aren't you? And when that lap time is deleted because you've exceeded the track limits, oftentimes at turn 12, all that investment is completely wasted.
Yeah, exactly. And the track is not extremely short, but it's not the longest. And that means traffic can always come into play. And when you're trying to battle and fight for every 100th of a second, just having to swerve around another car, respectful as that driver might behave and try to get out of the way, it just costs you some time 99 out of 100 times, and that can be the difference between P1 and P3 or P4 and P7, and therefore any lap you can bank is a bonus.
We've said before, and we'll say it again, that however polite drivers are in terms of getting out of the way of another driver who's on a hot lap, you can't just make your car disappear from nowhere. And inevitably, whilst you won't necessarily block another driver, just your mere presence is enough to potentially ruin that lap. Let's go on board with another young superstar, Benz Valent, then for Ferrari Budapest Rosso Corsa. Of course, this is a local gig for Benz. and he will be hoping to really shine in front of legions of fans and guests and family that are here this weekend to see the Valint family perform. Benz is one of the drivers. Tibor, his father, is another one who races in a different class to Benz, but nonetheless, both of them are well, certainly full of anticipation for this race weekend. So, Giacomo Altoe victorious yesterday. We'll see if he can put it on pole position for today. We also have our Pirelli AM drivers out there. Just a reminder, the Pirelli drivers with the red strip across the top of the windscreen, the AM drivers with the white strip across the top of the windscreen. And big shout out to the Lueg Sportivo Herta racing driver, Otto Blank, Nico, who I'm delighted to see has called upon the coaching talents of one Mr. Björn Grossman to support him in his qualifying and racing efforts. And Björn Grossman, of course, a hugely successful Ferrari Challenge driver and a great racing driver and a good friend to us, it has to be said as well. So it's really nice to see Björn back in the paddock. Though, if I'm honest, I'd like to see Björn back in a car.
And we told him as much because he's been such an uber professional and uber successful and great competitor in the Ferrari Challenge. And to have him in the paddock is a great asset. To having him in the car would have been, or would be, even greater. And you know, I said to him, there is that Finale Mondiale race win that's still missing from his resume, and he looked at me and said, don't get me started. And I said, well, I will get you started, and I hope you will get it started and finished at some point.
The irony is, Franco Maselli, who is one of our TV direction team, he and I were talking about, we both remember with abject horror, when Björn was indeed leading that World Championship race in Daytona, the International World of Motor Racing, you may recall. And then,
I do.
Unfortunately, through no fault of his own, he didn't complete the race, and he still feels that that's a bitter pill which he had to swallow, Nico. So yes, he has unfinished business, and we hope one day that he will be able to put that right. Putting it right currently is Luca Engstler. Now Luca is here driving his father Franz Engstler's car. Franz is not so well this weekend, so Luca is acting as deputy. First and foremost, get well soon, Franz. We miss you being here, but we are delighted that Luca is here because you know, he is a young star. There is no question, and well, he came to this circuit having, like all the other drivers, no experience of this circuit. But he actually jumped into the car on Friday, having not driven it before, and very creditably put it into the points, of course, as you would expect of Luca Engstler. And he, at the moment, is actually leading the early part of this qualifying session by being fastest. So it's good to see Luca here. He's a charming young man and a very talented driver. And may I mention, he's a DTM race winner. And this is Giacomo Altoe then going with very quick sector 1 and a quick sector 2 as well, and he'll bank a lap now. And as I say, this is just a banking lap. It's a 1:37.081. Nico, are we likely to get into the 35s?
Oh, yes, for sure. I mean, we were almost getting into the 35s in Coppershell earlier, and I dare say we'll get into the 34s with the Pirelli and Pirelli AM drivers. Because by virtue of their categorization, you would expect them to be even quicker.
Yes.
And obviously, with a little bit more temperature in the air and on the track, and there is someone who went in backwards into the barrier. I don't think it was a massive impact, but certainly there you can see the yellow flags, and if that car can continue, which I hope it will, and
David Acabazzi.
Yeah, then
Full course yellow. So David Acabazzi then, and this is what can happen in a qualifying session, Nico, which is why it pays to bank a lap, doesn't it? Because you don't know what's going to happen. I guess that probably David was just pushing a bit too hard on relatively cold tyres, back end of the car. Well, let's take a look in replay. This will tell us the story. Yeah. Wasn't actually pushing too hard, but what he did was just clip a little bit of the curb and grass, and that was enough to unsettle the car, wasn't it?
Yeah, first a little bit on the inside, which led to clipping the dirt a little on the outside, and that was just enough. The car is so light, as we say, because it really has the turning momentum already, and if it lacks, if it misses the grip at one point, that momentum will go further than it is planned, and that will get the car around. Usually in qualifying, you would get a red flag fairly quickly if a car can't move. Maybe race direction will say, well, the cars are still in the process of warming up the tires. Well, no, they won't. But sometimes at the very early stages, they will say, well, nobody's on a flying lap yet, so they can still warm up the tires and just be careful at one spot of the track. But obviously with a yellow flag, you can't set quick times, and so the red flag is the right decision.
Can I just ask you a question here? Because just as the red flag was called, just before the red flag was called, Giacomo Altoe had set another fastest lap. Now, will that lap time be deleted because of the wave double yellows on the final turn?
Well, I'm sure race control will have a very, very keen look at the sector time, and if that sector time was competitive...
it was purple.
I will plead the fifth. I'll refrain from making any statement on that.
Chicken.
Yeah, I'm very much so, and proud of it in that case, because Claudio Garavini and his colleagues and associates here from the track in race control have way more data, way more cameras, and way more authority over making these kind of judgments.
Dare I say ability?
100%. 100%. And actually, the lap time has been deleted for car number 2, which is Giacomo Altoe, for track limits at turn 12. So it may be just academic at that stage.
Yeah.
Well, we have a red flag. I don't think it will be very long, and there are 2 drivers who share the same opinion because they've already lined up at the end of the pit lane towards the exit, just in front of the traffic lights. And I think it's only going to be a few minutes. Safety, obviously, of the utmost importance, and therefore the car is being recovered with no other traffic on the track.
Yeah.
And once that is removed, I'm sure we will go back qualifying in. But a few minutes, so it's maybe time for a quick espresso, cappuccino, cup of tea, if you're British or otherwise inclined, and then we'll be back qualifying here at the Balaton Park circuit. There is Giacomo Altoe, whose P1 has been rescinded by virtue of the fact that that lap has been disallowed, which puts him down into P4 for the moment. And
that's tight parking.
Yeah, it is. The question is, you already said it. You changed the tires after a certain period of time. Now 7 minutes have elapsed. Will you take that opportunity to do it?
Some have done that. The team that engineer Zenith Scuderia, the team that engineer Laura Villa's car, they have done that. So the session's getting underway in around about, or restarting within 15 seconds. So yes, Zenith Scuderia took the opportunity and thought, you know what, been out, done a few laps. Come on, Laura, bring it in. We've got to bring it in. Let's get the tires changed. So that's precisely what they did.
So session is green again. We take a look at some nice images, and then we will be back with live action.
It's the qualifying session for Ferrari Challenge Trophy of Pirelli, the mix of Pirelli and Pirelli Am drivers out there on track. There's yesterday's Pirelli Am race winner, Andrew Morrow, the Charles Hurst driver, who is the current Ferrari Challenge Trophy of Pirelli UK champion. Having won the championship last year, he elected to race in Europe this year and is doing so to fine effect and taking his first win in Europe yesterday here at the Balaton Park circuit. And that followed, if I may say, Nico, a very bold move going into turn number 1 right at the start of the race, which you made mention of the fact that when we first arrived here at the Balaton Park circuit, that turn number 1, which kind of, it's almost like a hairpin, it comes back on you, you know, this right-hander that it was always going to be something of a pinch point, particularly at the start of the race. That proved to be the case yesterday, and there were 3 cars together. Andrew Morrow was one of them. Philippe Barron was yet another. They all got together there, and Andrew Morrow, well, he stuck his elbows out and came with an absolutely firm move, but decisive.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good for him. And it just shows how competitive this championship is. One of the other drivers who got his first race win in the Ferrari Challenge back in Mugello was Klaus Brunson, and
yes.
We got a chance to have a chat with him yesterday, and it's his first full season campaign, and he's really, really ambitious and wants to leave his mark, and really now that he's a full-time campaigner, and you can see his car at the very back, it's the black and green. He led the championship coming into Balaton Park circuit, and he is certainly one to watch. He's currently only P7 in class, P12 overall, but he is setting good personal bests and very competitive times, so expect him to move up the order as well.
That's a very fair point you make. As you can see, the graphics on the right-hand side of your screen indicates just how hard Andrew Morrow is pushing in his 296 Challenge car, these wonderful 6-cylinder, 700 horsepower machines. 4th gear, 180 kilometers per hour before just a little tap of the brakes going into that turn, although some drivers take it full chat flat. He may have braked just a little bit into another car that was there, and then into the chicane. So Andrew Morrow then the Charles Hurst driver. This is more of a sort of an installation lap before he really gets going, I would suggest, around the final sequence of turns, and this I think is going to be more of a meaningful lap from Andrew Morrow. It's Max Mugelli who's currently fastest. Like that, Klaus Branson, the very man that Nico was talking about with a 1:36.014. We are expecting the times to come down significantly. We're looking at Ben Smallin, who's got a track limits warning against him. So therefore, this lap time, despite being very, very good, I really rather fear that the lap time will be deleted because he exceeded the track limits. He knows that and comes into the pits. So that would suggest to me, Nico, that the Ferrari Budapest Rosso Corsa team are bringing him in to put on new tyres to go out for the second half of qualifying.
Yeah, very accurate analysis as I see it and as I believe it, and that means that Benz here, the local hero,
yes.
is going to go reload and then make his mark and make it count. Max Mugelli is pushing, as is James Owen.
Now, if you are a fan of the Ferrari Challenge, which we very much hope you are and expect you to so be if you are watching this qualifying session, you'll note that James Owen overnight has changed colours of his car. Well, James Owen, right at the in the race yesterday, unfortunately up against the barriers right on the start-finish straight, so I'm rather suspecting it's a spare car, Nico.
Yeah, absolutely. Klaus Brunson, actually, his time from the previous lap was disallowed towards the very end, so he ran foul with the track limits the very end, which explains why it says 8th on the graphics and not first, as we would have thought, but he will do something about that, and you know what? I can do it again. A 1:35.622, and there we are at the 1:35s, and I dare say this is not the limit quite yet.
I think you're right, with 18 minutes remaining. Where are we at? 1:35.622. We're certainly going to see some tenths taken away, if not even greater than that. So the cars out there qualifying, including Max Mugelli, who exceeded the track limits at turn 12, so his lap time is going to be deleted. This is Hanno Laskowski, the ML Ferrari racing driver, who's currently 3rd fastest. He's 3rd fastest within his Pirelli AM class, I should make that clear. It's Klaus Branson that's fastest of anyone. He's a Pirelli AM driver that's quicker than all the Pirelli drivers at the moment. Wouldn't necessarily expect that to remain the case for the entire duration, but you never know. It's not over until the rotund lady has sung, and we are 17.5 minutes away from that. And Hanno Laskowski, well, he improves still further. So Hanno Laskowski with a 1:36.577. This is Max Mugelli. Max Mugelli, another entertaining and very, very proactive Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli driver, who's 2nd fastest within class at the moment. Big shout out to the driver that is P1 at the moment. That is Luca Engstler, P1 in class of Trofeo Pirelli. He's the fastest of those Trofeo Pirelli drivers with a 1:36.062. Max Mugelli then. He's sector 2, potentially because of traffic was not quite as where he would like it to be. And it remains Klaus Sebranson from Luca Exler, from Max Mugelli, from Ben Svaliant, and then it's James Owen and Hendrik Viol.
Yeah, absolutely. And there you can see Max Mugelli coming in, and that probably indicates that he hadn't changed his tires yet to a new set. Klaus Sebranson, he's also now in the pit lane. That means whatever challenge is put against his current provisional pole time, he cannot respond immediately, but we expect to see him again in the next 16 minutes. Hanno Laskowski, that deleted the previous time around. He's going once again, trying to get an improvement. He's currently P3 in class, P8 overall, and it's just a few meters away from crossing the timing line, which he does now, and again improves to P2, P4 overall, and hopes that this time the lap will count and stay.
I love this onboard shot from the Hendrik Viol car. I think it's one of our most impressive of lots of impressive camera angles. I particularly love this one. Hendrik Viol then, who is currently 3rd fastest in class, 7th fastest overall, but he's on a flyer here. As you can see, S1 and S2 are both painted purple. Bit like his car, really. Hendrik Viol then driving for the Scuderia Prague racing team. 3rd fastest for Trofeo Pirelli Am. Is this going to be an improvement for Hendrik Viol as he crosses the timing line? It's not. In the final sector, he lost time. He will go again. Giacomo Altoe, Nico, is on a vein of speed right now. As you can see, he was quickest of anyone going through sector 1 as we return now to the car of Hendrik Viol. And this wonderful onboard shot. Let's get another onboard shot, this time from Giacomo Altoe, who is on a mission here. Sector 1, quickest of anyone. Sector 2, quickest of anyone. To my knowledge, he does have a track limits warning against him. So this lap, despite being 1.887 seconds quicker than anybody else, is not going to count because the old campaigner, dare I say that, the man who has probably as much Ferrari Challenge racing experience as nearly anyone, Philippe Barron, team boss, back into driving duties, has gone quickest, Nico.
Yeah, I mean, Philippe Barron, if you take a sample of his blood, the blood group will come out Ferrari Challenge. I mean, it is that entrenched into his identity, I dare say. He may disagree with that, but he's been a part of this series in various roles for so many years, and it's always great to have him around, and it's even greater to have him back in the car. I dare say he also ran foul of track limits, and that blistering lap time has been deleted. So track limits already playing a big role here, and you said it at the very beginning, it is a very significant part. Hendrik Viol, meanwhile, he puts it on provisional pole. It's all from here on out pending approval by race control, because the tricky thing is the pinch point.
Yes.
Turn number 12 is so far towards the end of the lap that you push through the lap, and you finish the lap, and only after that they will tell you, actually, no. If it happens at the very beginning of the lap, at least you can slow down, you can not overstress the tires, but by the virtue of that bottleneck, if you will, being so far to the end, it's a little bit unfortunate for the drivers if it happens.
However, Giacomo Altoe, to the best of our knowledge, Nico, he's had 3 track limits warnings, but none applied to that last lap, which was a blisterer, a 1:34.522, Nico, which puts him to the top of the chart. Pending, I can see no track limits warnings against him for that particular lap. I think it will stay for the Emil Frey driver. Giacomo Altoe is the quickest. However, here comes Marco Zanazzi. Is he going to better it? He's certainly on a course to do so, because Sector 1 and Sector 2 are purple. That means quicker than anyone for Marco Zanazzi then, with 2 turns to do. The target is a 1:34.522. And he does better in terms of his position within class, but not enough to wrestle the actual overall pole away from Giacomo Altoe. Marco Zanazzi with a 1:34.970, so 4.5 tenths down on the benchmark that was set by Giacomo Altoe. Nonetheless, he's knocked Hendrik Viol off the top spot in Trofeo Pirelli Am.
Absolutely great replay here of the Giacomo Altoe car and its driver taking it through the turns. And for the time being, the quickest one overall, and he's going for it again. First sector purple, second not quite up to that same level. Let's see if it's an overall improvement. It is. It's marginal, but you never know how much the difference will be between...
Oh, we've got a red flag, Nico. Forgive me.
Indeed, red flag is out.
And that's the reason why it's Hanno Laskowski, Nico, who's beached in the gravel.
Yeah, indeed, and no major incident, but obviously the car being where it is means that nobody could set a quick time, and with 11 minutes remaining, that means that car has to be recovered. And then we get into that scenario that we have already alluded to. 11 minutes sounds like a lot, but once you get out and you go through warming up the brakes, warming up the Pirelli P0s to the perfect window, you may have 2 laps maybe remaining, and then if you take into account that pretty much everybody will be on a very similar strategy, traffic is gonna be massive. So that is going to be a really, really interesting few minutes once we get going and once everybody is up to race or qualifying speed.
I agree with you. Those who are disadvantaged big time by this are the likes of Ben Svalint, Andrew Morrow, also potentially Luca Engstler, Laura Villas, because you're absolutely right. 11 minutes and 12 seconds when the session restarts. It's going to be tricky. It is going to be tricky. So the key to it, in my opinion, is get the heck down to the front of that pit lane, be ready to go. But you're going to catch traffic in any event, so it's almost academic. We're on board with Hendrik Viol, who for a little bit of the session was the top driver in Trofeo Pirelli Am for Scuderia Prague Racing. He's been relegated to P2 now, courtesy of Marco Zanazzi, the CDP Pinetti Motorsport driver. We ride on board with Giacomo Altoe, taking time to get back to the pit lane. And there you can see where Giacomo exceeded the track limits, Nico, and that was a slam dunk, wasn't it?
Yeah, obviously it wasn't the lap that currently propels him to P1 on the provisional ranking, but it was the one which we talked about previously. Yeah. And yeah, I think that was quite an easy call up in race control.
This is interesting, Nico. Lara Villas is out of the car, and crash helmet and hands device and balaclava coming off, Nico.
Yeah, indeed.
It's not going to be a long stop, and therefore, it's not going to take them long to recover the Hanno Laskowski car. Therefore, I think Lara Villas is considering that the qualifying session is done insofar as she's concerned. She's P5 in the order.
Well, we will see. I mean, you already said one of the obvious strategies is to be at the very front of the queue, but as you already said, it doesn't mean that you won't have any traffic. So you could take it a little bit easier and just say, well, let that first bunch of cars get away and come in behind and just be on a little bit of a different cycle. The time is just enough to do that.
Now, Giacomo Altoe, I believe, will do exactly the same. He'll jump out of the car. He'll feel that he's done as much as he can do. The only thing I would say, Nico, is that Philip Barron, he posted a lap time that was within 2/10 of Giacomo Altoe. So, there are so many questions to be asked, and I'm sorry to say the answers are not necessarily forthcoming from us. We can only give you our opinion, and it is merely that, ill-informed, that it often is. There, we are sure that the recovery team are working very, very quickly to recover the stricken Hanno Laskowski car. And I suspect that won't show again in qualifying because they'll have to have the hoover on that and vacuum out all the gravel that's been shoveled up into the underneath of the car, I would suggest. So the drivers that have really got to make the difference when we get this going once again are the likes of Kim Eriksson and Andrew Morrow and the local star, as Nico mentioned earlier on, Ben Svalint. Looking at Marco Zanazzi right now, who is the quickest of the AM drivers. Philip Barron is chasing hard the provisional pole sitting time, I should say, of Giacomo Altoe. He's got within 2/10 of it. Is he going to be able to steal that march away from P1 in the final stages of this qualifying session? So as soon as we know when the session is going to restart, we will advise you of that. As I say, I don't think it's going to be a long stop. Just taking a look at the chart for lap time deletions and track limits. At the top of that chart, ironically, is our provisional pole setter, Giacomo Altoe. He was matched by Gianmarco Marzioletti, who also had 4 track limits infringements. Philip Barron had a couple. Marco Zanassi has had 1. Klaus Branson had a couple. As did David Akabadze. Then the likes of James Owen and Ben Svalint, and also Hanno Laskovski, who is the driver that found himself in the gravel. They also suffering from lap time deletions brought about by track limits infringements. It's a narrow track, and unfortunately the drivers will always try and shortcut where they possibly can to gain as much time as possible. And well, I have to say, I think our race stewarding team, led by Claudio Garavini, are very diligent and also very fair in terms of making it very, very clear to all our drivers that you get 3 track limits warnings. This is in a race, and then once you've got to 3, then you'll start having time added to your race time. Now, it's a different scenario, of course, in qualifying, where basically you make 1 track limit excursion, you get that lap time deleted, and we've seen that. And as you say, I've just given you the list and rundown of who's done what in terms of lap times being deleted in qualifying. So still no news from race control as to when we will be going racing again, but as you can see, champing at the bit to get out there is one of those drivers that is misplaced, in my opinion, and that's yesterday's Pirelli AM race winner, the Charleshurst driver Andrew Morrow. He's at the head of the queue, Nico.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, arguably in P17 he has the most work to do because of where he would like to be, or where he expects to be, and where he currently is. There is a significant disparity, so I can fully understand that sense of urgency. But we have that queue of cars here in the pit lane, and while others are still maybe also pondering what to do and seeing what will happen, what others will do before making a call. I could imagine for some of those like Giacomo Altoe or so that they will go out just to be on the track without pushing too much, and the moment that there is a real challenge to their lap time, they will pick up the pace. But that is a strategy which the teams will make. I'm surprised we're this long in the red flag, because clearly the car didn't make impact with anything. But well, we hope that we can get back to action, because the cars stationary are quite beautiful. The cars in action, it's just a different story.
Yes. What are you doing, Dave? I'm pondering. I enjoy pondering. Giacomo Altoe is the quickest driver in Pirelli at the moment. Marco Zanazzi is the quickest driver in Pirelli AM, and as if the race recovery team were listening to Nico, we have found out that the session is going to restart in around about 40 seconds from now. We will get back to qualifying again. That's the screen inside the car now. These 296 Challenge cars do not have a rear view mirror internally. They have that screen, which the drivers actually prefer because it gives them a wider vista, if you will, of what's behind them. And they much prefer that. And the reason for not having an internal rear-view mirror is because there is a safety bulkhead behind the driver. Ensuring driver safety is, of course, of utter paramount importance when it comes to designing these wonderful racing cars, which the factory have done a fantastic job, the Ferrari 296 Challenge car. Right now, let's go green. Yes, we do. And let's get this session back underway again. The Hanno Laskovski car has been recovered. And, well, out of there, very, very quickly, is Andrew Morrow, yesterday's Pirelli AM race winner. And now we have just over 10 minutes of this session remaining, so drivers really need to work hard. We go on board with Ben Svalint. He's another driver like Andrew Morrow that needs to make a difference in this final 10 minutes of qualifying or thereabouts. so that he can propel himself further up the order in his current P12 grid position. We are thinking that a number of drivers will not be rejoining the session because they feel that they've extracted as much as they possibly can from the car and from the track, and deciding not to go again. So you can hear Bens Valent using the car very cleverly to try and generate some temperature by braking, then releasing the brake and then back on the brake again. And what that does, that generates temperature which is dissipating through the rims onto the tyres to bring those Pirellis up to operating temperature, so he can really go for qualifying once again. It's Giacomo Altoe from Philip Barron for our Pirelli drivers. It's Marco Zanazzi from Hendrik Viol for our Pirelli AM drivers. Hanno Laskowski, the driver that caused the red flag, well, he is third fastest, and he is certainly one driver that I would suggest will not be taking part in the final part of this qualifying for our Pirelli and Pirelli AM drivers. Riding on board with Bens Valent, and it's great to ride on board with the local star here. He, of course, racing in Pirelli. His father, Tibor Valent, also racing in the Ferrari Challenge this weekend. So just a couple of turns to do for Bens Valent, and then he will go for a timed lap with relatively clear track ahead of him. Let's go for qualifying. Here comes Bens Valent, then still weaving from side to side. Continuing to generate temperature into those tyres, into the right-hander right now. 4.1 kilometre circuit, this Balaton Park circuit. Quick blast of the throttle before on the brakes again for that left-hander, and well, he is on his way. You can see Luca Engstler there weaving from side to side as well as he tries to generate temperature into the tyres too. And there is Max Mugelli. So as Nico made the point, there's, with just 8.5 minutes remaining in this qualifying session, barring traffic and any other reasons, then probably the maximum that the driver's going to extract from the final part of qualifying is maybe 2 or 3 timed laps, and you need to have so many boxes ticked. And Max Mugelli, as you can see, he's done a personal best through Sector 1. He's got cars ahead of him, but quick cars ahead of him, because it is Andrew Morrow, yesterday's race winner. So another personal best for Max Mugelli into Sector 2. And now the final quite technical sector of this track for Max Mugelli, the CDP Eureka competition driver. Really super fast racing driver. And final 2 turns to be done for Max Mugelli. This could be an improvement for him as Andrew Morrow crosses the line. And so too does Max Mugelli, who stays P3 in class. Andrew Morrow has improved on that lap, so he's improved to P5 within class, P8 overall. And this surprises me. I did not expect to see Giacomo Altoe go again, but he is going again, and he's running the gauntlet right from the very start because Sector 1 is purple.
Yes, indeed, and you could say that it's necessary because Philip Barron is also putting in a very good first sector, so he is challenging for that pole position, as is Max Mugelli, who's also after his previous good lap is now going for an even better one. So lots of movement there, and dare I say, I believe we might edge into the 1:33s at the end of this qualifying session. Less than 7 minutes remaining, and there is Philip Barron heading to the timing line. It's right at the beginning of this start-finish straight, and that is a statement. A 1:34.033, not in the 1:33s just yet, but it may still come.
You're absolutely right, and the thing is, not only does this give you critical grid position for the start of the race, and I say critical because the track is relatively narrow, it also gives you a point as well. So Philip Barron then, barring 3 100ths, just over 3 100ths, almost into the 1:33s. You might see that on the next lap. So it's Philip Barron now, provisional pole. Giacomo Altoe is P2. P3 is Max Mugelli, P4 is Luca Engstler. Make that P3 now as Luca Engstler goes third fastest with a 1:34.844.
And the one driver who is still missing from that battle for the front is Bens Valent, the local hero, and right on cue he puts it onto P2 provisionally, a 1:34.402. That's 3.5 tenths down from the current Philip Barron time, but that was his first attempt at a flying lap following the intermission and the interruption, so he is certainly going to go again. So is Giacomo Altoe. So is Philip Barron, although not on this lap. So we are far from finished in this session. It's going to be a frantic fight all the way to the flag, I dare predict.
I think you're right to do that prediction. Andrew Morrow's also improved. He's up to P3 in class. It's P8 overall. And here comes Giacomo Altoe then. And this was the problem that we thought we might come across during this final part of qualifying, and that is traffic. And you can see there, Sector 1 is purple, but Sector 2 is darker grey, which means that Sector 2 was not an improvement for Giacomo Altoe because, of course, the traffic that he came across. Now, you don't necessarily need to colour every sector purple, but it certainly helps you, and I don't think this will be an improvement from Giacomo Altoe. Well, I was wrong. It is a slight improvement, which just knocks Bence Valin out of P2, and he goes into P2, relegating Bence Valin, as I mentioned, into P3 now. So it's Barron from Altoe, from Valint and Engstler. And this is the number 89 car that we're watching right now, going very, very quickly of Klaus Sibranson, the Formula Racing driver. Sector 1, purple. Sector 2, purple. Here comes Sector 3. He rounds it out, purple. He goes P1 within class with a 1:34.390.
Absolutely. In the meantime, Andrew Morrow had also leapfrogged the Fluid driver. He was P2 in class, now down to P3 following this man's efforts, which means he is now P3 behind Sir Branson and Marco Zanazzi. 4 minutes remaining on the clock. Philip Barron leads, but Giacomo Altoe, he is going once again. So is Luca Engstler, and both of those with very, very good intermediate sector times. No track limit warnings on our screen for the moment. And Giacomo Altoe, yeah, I was about to say it doesn't look like he is at full speed in this section of the lap, so potentially, or very likely, he's going to set himself up for another go.
And critically to this is Philip Barron has brought the car into the pit lane. So Giacomo Altoe has got the opportunity to respond to Philip Barron's 1:34.033. He's not going to do that either, Nico. He brings it into the pit lane. He feels that the risk-reward strategy with regards to tyres doesn't make it worthwhile. However, one young whippersnapper that could cane them both is Luca Engstler. Sector 1, purple. Sector 2, personal best. So what can Luca Engstler do here? So Luca Engstler then for Gome Motorsport, and Engstler Racing crosses the timing line and regrettably lost quite some time in that final sector, but he is going to go again, Nico. Is Luca Engstler or Bence Valin going to be one of the drivers that can knock Philip Barron off the top spot here?
Well, it's going to be very interesting. Bence Valin currently P4 overall, P3 in class. Obviously, he would like, in front of his home crowd, to put it up as high up the order as possible. Well, Philip Barron feels
confident.
I've
never known Philip not to feel confident, truthfully. He's a glass half full kind of a guy.
Well, he always aims for the absolute best. And
talking of glass half fulls, we just saw Tommy Lindroth in there as well, who's another glass half full kind of a guy.
Okay.
Is Bence has got a TL warning?
That was
from a previous lap.
Yeah, that was on a previous lap. The first sector on this lap wasn't particularly good. It's still somewhere where it could lead to something.
We were just seeing Bence Valin's driver coach, none other than a very successful driver in his own time as well, and yeah, that was good to see as we look at Gianmarco Marzioletti. So Gianmarco Marzioletti, who's currently P8. It's Barron from Altoe, from Klaus Branson, then it's Bence Valin and Luca Engstler. That's the way it looks at the moment. Who is going to do the improving here? We've got just 1 minute and 20 seconds of this qualifying session remaining. So great to watch the Gianmarco car then. He drives for Radici Automobili, best lap, FCI. And you hear that wonderful six-cylinder power plant of the Ferrari Challenge 296. Crossing the timing line, no improvement. Is anyone set the purple sector?
No, and I dare say that for the most part, this qualifying session has run its course, and we can see that more and more drivers are coming into the pits who just say, well, the extra effort and the extra strain on the tires just isn't worth it. I mean, Arifpour, he is still trying to push. He's on a relatively lowly P18 position, so he certainly would like to move higher up the order, and he is finishing this lap. Had a personal best first sector, decent second sector, and let's see if he can improve overall. Well, a track limit infringement on the third sector means that whatever he did didn't count. Ben Svelland now, the local here, we talked about him. Decent, very good first sector actually, only 6/100ths off the pace, so that may be the last attempt because the time is ticking down. It is quadruple zeros now. Checkout flag is out. Ben Svelland, Max Mugelli, those are the drivers who may still do something about it, although Max Mugelli, he will finish the lap earlier. Don't see him really improving his time anymore, but he finishes the lap. He goes around the final turn one more time. We have our eyes glued on the timing screen as well. Ben Svelland, second sector, decent, still with the potential to leapfrog Klaus Zebranson. I don't think much more is going to be possible, but we go on board with him as he takes that final chicane, and then left hand, right hand kink, and then it's the finish line. It's not far away. A 1:34.390 would mean an improvement, and indeed he does. He gets that one place higher up the order. It's only, and I say that with all due respect, an M driver that he leapfrogged, so he's still P3 in class, but yes, it's one place higher up the order.
There's Philippe Baron with his Rotiform pole position award, which means that he gets an additional point for his qualifying efforts, as well as the fact that he will be starting from P1 on the grid. Philippe Baron, Giacomo Altoe, then P1 and P2, then it's Klaus Zebranson, Ben Svelland, Luca Engstler, Marco Zanazzi, Andrew Morrow, yesterday's AM race winner. He's going from P7 on the grid, ahead of Max Mugelli and Hendrik Viol. And there you can see, once again, Philippe Baron. He's done it in qualifying. The Go Motorsport Baron Racing Team driver pushed the number 91 car to a 1:34.033. We did think we were going to maybe even get into the 1:33s. It just wasn't quite there. Ben Svelland being coached. I mentioned earlier to when we saw his driver coach on the screen. What did Ben Svelland extract? A P3 in the end with a 1:34.402. I mean P3 within class. It is a second row start for him. However, he will have Klaus Zebranson ahead of him. So we'll get confirmation of the classification. Here it is. It was Philippe Baron from Giacomo Altoe. Best of the AM drivers, Klaus Zebranson. Then it's Ben Svelland, Luca Engstler, Marco Zanazzi, Andrew Morrow, and Max Mugelli occupying the top 8 places ahead of Hendrik Viol. Hanno Laskowski, Herbert Gies, Laura Villas. Then it's Gianmarco Marzioletti, David Akabadzi, and James Owen. Ahead of Kim Eriksson, Otto Blank, Armin Arifpour, and Ruslan Sedriv, not classified, unfortunately, because of his off yesterday. So there we have it, qualifying for Trofeo Pirelli and Trofeo Pirelli AM done and dusted. Stand by. We have 488 qualifying to come very, very soon. We're back qualifying here at the Balaton Park circuit with our Copichelle and 488 cars to qualify, and it is the 488 cars that will be qualifying first of all. And these cars, of course, have formed such a rich history for the success of the Ferrari Challenge and continuing to race in all of the 2024 events. So the 488 cars out for their very short qualifying session, just 20 minutes on the clock for them. So beginning to get the tyres up to temperature. And we watch the cars. And of course it's Fabrizio Fontana who's done a very good job thus far in terms of driving. We're watching the Niels Sabranson Formula Racing car right now. Niels Sabranson then, who's out there for his qualifying. And of course we are very aware of the fact that drivers in the previous qualifying sessions have found track limits to be something of a difficulty here at the Balaton Park circuit. So we will see and hope that the 488 drivers manage to keep it within the white lines of the track to ensure that their lap time does not get deleted in any way whatsoever. So 5 drivers that should be out for qualifying. They are Alexei Komarov, Tommy Lindroth, Pino Frascaro, Fabrizio Fontana and Niels Sabranson, the very driver that we're watching right now. There are 2 cars that are still in the pit lane at the moment, and they are Pino Frascaro and Fabrizio Fontana. So Niels Sabranson taking advantage of the fact that the track is relatively clear, although he picks up a bit of gravel. As you can see, the smoke screen doesn't impact or affect anyone else, though, because there's no one following him. So just 20 minutes for these drivers to qualify. And quicker than anyone is Niels Sabranson at the moment through Sector 1 and Sector 2, but he would be quicker than anyone because no one else has set any meaningful sector times yet. So Niels Sabranson crosses the timing line now and gives us a benchmark, if nothing else, of a 1:45.276. 1:45.276, and that looks like Fabrizio Fontana to me coming out of the pit lane as we look at Tommy Lindroth now in the 227 car. Now, his team boss, who was out qualifying just a few moments ago in Trofeo Pirelli, has actually set the fastest time of anyone in Trofeo Pirelli and has given pole position. So right now it's one of his team's drivers, Tommy Lindroth, driving in the 488 class, who is out there and quicker than anyone in Sector 1 at the moment. So Tommy Lindroth on a good speed trajectory, it would appear. Klaus Sabranson, Niels Sabranson rather, is the first to really show. But Tommy Lindroth looks like he is going to go to the top of the chart potentially here, providing he can make sure that Sector 3 is the same as Sector 2 and Sector 1, which have been very quick for him. So Tommy Lindroth then, a very long campaigner in the Ferrari Challenge and a great driver, and good fun to be around, that's for sure, as he heads towards breaking the timing beam now. It's a 1:47.918 from Tommy Lindroth. Now, you may recall me mentioning Niels Sabranson being very quick just a moment or so ago. Well, he was, but he had a track limit infringement, which meant that his lap got taken away. And that's why Niels Sabranson, as you can see on the left-hand screen, is being shown as second fastest on screen. And this is Niels Sabranson going again with Sector 1 and Sector 2 purple, and make that all 3 sectors purple. So he goes back to the top of the chart with no track limits against that particular lap. So a 1:43.793 as opposed to the 1:47.918 from Tommy Lindroth, and a 1:49.916 which has been set by Alexei Komarov. Now, the driver that we're expecting to make quite some difference to the qualifying is the driver Fabrizio Fontana, who has made his debut into the Ferrari Challenge for 2024 and done a very good job. He had a very good weekend in Mugello and actually did all right yesterday in the race too. So Fabrizio Fontana will be looking to maintain his rich vein of success in the Ferrari Challenge. And here we pick his car up then. And well, this is not necessarily going to be the lap to do so, but there's more of an installation lap, I would suggest, from Fabrizio Fontana before he gets going really properly. So it's Niels Sabranson from Tommy Lindroth with 13 minutes remaining in qualifying for our Ferrari Challenge 488 cars in this particular category. And Fabrizio Fontana, as I say, great success he's had. He's very nearly 5 tenths down on the best time, which has been set by Niels Sabranson. So this could be a good time from Fabrizio Fontana. I was saying this might only be an installation lap, but even if it is, it's a very, very quick one. He's driver coached by Stefano Guy, another driver who's had a lot of success in Ferrari Challenge, as well as lots of other GT racing as well. And Fabrizio Fontana crosses the timing line with a time of 1:42.508. So good job done by Fabrizio Fontana then, as he really has pushed very, very hard in this early stage of qualifying session. But there are I should say, is how many buts I can get into that. 12 minutes remaining of the 20 minutes qualifying that these drivers have. So it is Pino Frascaro who now goes third fastest. New set of tyres going onto the Tommy Lindroth car, we can see. It's Fontana from Sabranson, from Frascaro, from Lindroth, from Komarov. And this is Alexei Komarov for the Scuderia Prague racing team, driving the number 211 car. Currently fifth fastest in our 488 challenge category. So during 2024, still seeing racing from the cars that have been so successful in the Ferrari Challenge and lots of other GT racing categories as well. It's good to see them still out on track. Fabrizio Fontana then, dissatisfied with his 1:42.508, is going still quicker. We pick up on him now, and look at this. He's a huge amount down on his previous lap time. So this could be a really blistering lap from Fabrizio Fontana. Sector 1, purple. Sector 2, purple. Will Sector 3 be the same, and will we see that 1:42.508 come down still further? Well, he's got one turn to do. Let's see. We're going to get into the 141s. We can do even better than that. We're going to get into the 140s. 143.11 from Fabrizio Fontana. Tommy Lindroth rejoining now with a new set of tyres on. And here is Pino Frascaro. Different colours for Pino Frascaro than we saw him yesterday. And that's because he's driving a spare car. Now, he's gone personally better in Sector 1 and Sector 2, and he's rounding Sector 3 right now, and he's about to close it out. Is this going to be an improvement from Pino Frascaro? It is. He improves one place and goes to second fastest in our 488 Challenge qualifying session, of which almost half of it is done now. In replay, this is Pino Frascaro then lighting up the brake discs as he pushes the 488 Challenge car for all it's worth here at the Balaton Park circuit, the 4.1 kilometer circuit, which is a real test for our drivers, certainly. And quite a tight circuit where track position is even more important here than at some other circuits, because having that track position gives you a relatively clear track ahead. So Fabrizio Fontana, we're watching the car now, the 289 car, which is the car of Niels Sabranson. And Niels Sabranson also improving. Sector 1 and Sector 2 are painted blue. That means a personal best through Sector 1 and Sector 2. And he's still 1.7 seconds down on the time that's been set by Fabrizio Fontana at that 1:43.11. So it's Fontana from Frascaro, from Sabranson, from Komarov, and then Tommy Lindroth, who's on an outlap right now. And we know that Tommy Lindroth has put new tyres on as Alexei Komarov makes way for Fabrizio Fontana to come around with just under 9 minutes of the session remaining before we get our Copa Shell cars out for qualifying. Back on the loud pedal now, really accelerating here at the Balaton Park circuit. A new circuit for all racing, and certainly new for the Ferrari Challenger. First visit to this circuit in Hungary, situated about an hour or so from Budapest. And Fabrizio Fontana, then the driver that we have center screen right now for Formula Racing is P1 with a 1:43.11. Ahead of Pino Frascaro, P2, Nils Sabranson, P3, Alexei Komarov, P4, then it is Tommy Lindroth, but expect to see great improvement from Tommy Lindroth, as we know that he's got fresh Pirelli tyres on. He came into the pit lane and changed them fairly early on, gone out on a used set from yesterday initially just to get his eye in, and now is out there on fresh rubber. Here is Pino Frascaro looking to improve if he can, and certainly from a personal perspective he has done that through Sector 1. So Pino Frascaro, what can he do? Well, Sector 2 was down for him, so unfortunately this lap may not be to his liking, and certainly isn't going to trouble Fabrizio Fontana, who is at the top of the chart. What have we got left? 7 minutes, that's all for our drivers to improve. Tommy Lindroth has improved 1 spot, goes to P4, and here comes Pino Frascaro, who stays P2 because his lap time was down on previous lap times and still some 2 1/3 seconds down on the provisional pole that has been set by Fabrizio Fontana. Let's have a look at the pit wall then, as the engineers and data analysis is taking place there, and tyre pressure is being adjusted on the Alexei Komarov car. So the 211 car of Alexei Komarov, the Scuderia Prague team, just making mid-session adjustments, if you will. And here comes Tommy Lindroth. Now he is improving on this time around. So personal best through Sector 1. So Tommy Lindroth, as I mentioned, a long-term campaigner in the Ferrari Challenge and regular podium placer, as indeed was the case yesterday. So driving for Gome Motorsport Baron Racing Team, and team principal of Baron Racing Team, Philip Baron, who I just mentioned a while ago, set the fastest time in Trofeo Pirelli qualifying, as Fabrizio Fontana, well, his middle sector was a really, really good sector. Is he going to have done enough through Sector 1, or rather Sector 2 and Sector 3? Well, yes, he did. He took very nearly 4.5 tenths out of it, so he improved still further his time at 1:39.891. And here comes Tommy Lindroth, also looking for an improvement. He goes from P4 to P2. Well done, Tommy. And he's going to go again, hoping that he can improve still further. So Tommy Lindroth then in the 227 car is currently second fastest in our qualifying. And both Nils Sabranson and Alexei Komarov have been in the pit lane. Indeed, we saw Alexei Komarov with adjustments being made to the car. They are both on the way out of the pit lane and on an out lap again now. So the order currently in our 488 qualifying is Fabrizio Fontana, from Tommy Lindroth, and then it's Pino Frascaro, Nils Sabranson, and Alexei Komarov. Here is the quickest driver, Fabrizio Fontana. He's the only driver that has given us a sub 140 time in our 488 Challenge qualifying, and it was a 1:39.891. And he's going still quicker, certainly through Sector 1. And is he going to be able to improve through Sector 2? Yes, he is. It's 9 100ths. So Fabrizio Fontana with real pace in the car, and Fabrizio really, really going for it here in qualifying. And in the final 4 minutes of the qualifying session, he feels that he has the pace available to him to improve still further, which is what he does right now as he heads towards the timing line. And actually he lost time in the final sector. And I wonder when and if they will decide to bring the Fabrizio Fontana car in, because the risk-reward strategy with regards to tyre longevity in the race, because the tyres that the drivers are qualifying on will be the tyres that the drivers will be using in the race. As Pino Frascaro looks for improvements. Well, Sector 1 was personally better than Sector 1 on any previous lap. Sector 2, unfortunately, wasn't where he needs it to be. Into Sector 3 and about to round out that sector as he crosses the timing line now. Pino Frascaro currently P3, stays P3 and lost time in sectors 2 and 3. So what have we got? 3¼ minutes remaining in this qualifying session for our 488 cars. Ferrari Challenge then, here, this is round 2 of our 2024 season at the Balaton Park circuit. And we're watching Pino Frascaro, who is currently 3rd fastest in our 488 group of cars. Accelerating the car now. As I say, it's quite a narrow circuit, a circuit which is renowned for perhaps giving you the opportunity to exceed the track limits. And unfortunately for all our drivers, our race stewarding team are well across that. And well, track limits warnings have been issued to Pino Frascaro and Niels Sabranson, who both have 3 apiece. And this is Niels Sabranson that we're watching right now, currently 4th fastest. Sector 1 was a personal improvement, Sector 2 was not. You don't necessarily need to make all the sectors coloured to see an improvement. As he crosses the timing line, though, on this occasion he would need to colour them all before improving or to get improvement on his current P4 place. Niels Sabranson being engineered by Formula Racing, our race leader Fabrizio, or rather our qualifying leader Fabrizio Fontana as well. Niels Sabranson certainly explored the track limits there. Fabrizio Fontana being run also by Formula Racing. And here is Pino Frascaro. Again, Sector 1 was quick, but Sector 2 less so. So his cumulative time in Sector 2, which is not working for him. However, he remains P3 in the 240 car with 1.5 minutes left, and the best lap time has thus far been a 1:39.891. So any driver that crosses the timing line before the clock has counted down to 0 will be able to go again. Pino then accelerating out of that left-hand turn onto this long straight where you build speed right behind the start-finish straight. Into the right-hander now, kisses the apex of the chicane and kisses the apex on the out as well. So Pino Frascaro, who's driving a different car to the one that he competed in yesterday. And Pino Frascaro then again Sector 1 this time, where previously he's set personal best times through Sector 1. Sector 1 this time didn't work for him, and Sector 2, I fear, is going to be following the same. Once again, really putting his foot to the floor on the loud pedal. I can't see anyone really getting a better lap time than Fabrizio Fontana, who's confident enough that he's brought the car into the pit lane. And I rather think that pole position will once again be that of Fabrizio Fontana, with Tommy Lindroth with good qualifying for P2 in our 488 cars. For Tommy Lindroth, then it's this man, Pino Frascaro, who we watch right now. Rounds out the lap and crosses the timing line with the checkered flag out. He cannot go again. So the best we can see from Pino Frascaro is going to be P3. This, though, is the car of Fabrizio Fontana. The qualifying session is done, and no one is going to usurp Fabrizio Fontana from his top step of qualifying. There are still drivers out there going for it, though, including Niels Sabranson, the Formula Racing driver. But as I say, Niels Sabranson has got to find quite some time, and I really don't think the 1:39.891 is going to be troubled. And actually, Niels Sabranson is a sector time, so not indicative of being on a quick one. So I think our qualifying session, really, the order that you can see on the left-hand side of your screen on the graphics, is pretty much where we are going to be for the grid lineup for our 488 cars, with Fabrizio Fontana P1, Tommy Lindroth P2, then it will be Pino Frascaro, Niels Sabranson and Alexei Komarov. After saying that, just proving that I'm sometimes wrong, as Niels Sabranson goes 2nd fastest. So that knocks Tommy Lindroth down into P3. So Niels Sabranson, although he wasn't hugely quick relative to Fabrizio Fontana, he was quick enough to knock Tommy Lindroth out of that 2nd spot. So We have our shell qualifying, which will be starting at exactly 11:13, which is around about 3 or 4 minutes from now. And Tommy Lindroth brings his car into the pit lane. And it's Fabrizio Fontana from Niels Sabranson, from Tommy Lindroth, from Pino Frascaro, from Alexei Komarov. That's the way it looks for our 488 qualifying. And we are but 4 minutes away from our Copa Shell qualifying to get underway live here from Balaton Park Circuit. This is the Ferrari Challenge, round 2. Confirmation of our classification then: Fabrizio Fontana P1, ahead of Niels Sabranson. Then it's Tommy Lindroth, Pino Frascaro, and Alexei Komarov.
What fastest time for you this year?
The best time.
For you, yes.
You're for the 3 guys.
This is Ferrari Challenge Copa Shell qualifying, about to get underway then, live from the Balaton Park Circuit here in Hungary. We have some 13 drivers out there for qualifying who will set the fastest lap and give them P1 as we ride on board with Willem van der Boom, the Scuderia Monte Carlo driver, who is a very, very good driver. This onboard shot I absolutely love from the Willem van der Boom car. Not expecting any meaningful lap times for a few minutes yet. We have nearly all the cars out. The only cars that are missing are Michael Martin, Tibor Valent, the local star, Alexander Nussbaumer, yesterday's race winner, and John Dillon. They are choosing to just hold on before they go out for qualifying. There is 20 minutes on the clock for this qualifying session of our Copa Shell cars here at the Balaton Park Circuit, where the sun is beaming down today, and that hasn't been the case for all of our sessions, that's for sure, across the weekend, although today the weather has been set fair. And we go back to Willem van der Boom on board with Willem van der Boom then. these wonderful Ferrari Challenge racing cars. 296, of course, introduced at the start of this season. And we've just seen the previous Ferrari Challenge car, the 488, out for their qualifying session. The Scuderia Monte Carlo driver, Willem van der Vorm. We see Motohiko Isazaki in the 105 car. In qualifying, yesterday's Copa race really impacted and affected by the weather. And we hope the same will not be true today. Motohiko Isazaki then doing a very good job and is currently quickest of all the drivers out there, but do expect the lap times to come down significantly from where we are at the moment. A lot more to come from the drivers, I feel sure. So it is Motohiko Isazaki in the 105 car that we're following. Sector 1 is purple for Motohiko Isazaki, the Cornes Motors Shiba driver, who is the Copa AM champion from last year and is elevated therefore to Copa for this year. And that is Motohiko Isazaki, who we're watching now with a time of cumulative 1:11. So Sector 1 and Sector 2 purple currently, but still we've got a lot of time to be made up in this qualifying session, but we don't have much time in the qualifying session because it's only 20 minutes long, you know. Well, very nearly 4.5 of those minutes have gone. So it's Motohiko Isazaki then rounding the final turn and crossing the timing line to give us a meaningful time of 1:38.038. Alongside me is Nico Spalak, my long-term PIC partner in crime, as Henry Hassid. We know how quick he can be, Nico.
Yeah, absolutely. And he is going through the third sector, the turn 12, turn 13 part of this track, which is almost or always a crucial one because of track limits. Hasn't set a time yet, but Henry Hassid closes out this lap, and unfortunately, track limits means that this lap doesn't count because it was in Sector 3 exactly where it generally happens to be, that he ran afoul of those track limits, so don't see his name on the left-hand side, but it is Motohiko Isazaki, and he's our race winner from yesterday, and he is leading once again in this qualifying session. As Dave has already said, it is a short, sharp qualifying of only 20 minutes, and that means where usually you have 10 extra minutes to go through your progression in terms of Saturday tires that you start the qualifying session on, then switch to a new set of Pirelli P0s, which is fresh and gives you the best potential for putting in absolute flyers of qualifying laps. All that time is condensed, and Motohiko Isazaki, he improves once again with a very, very good lap, a 1:37.601, but the drivers will hope that the new set of tires will give them an opportunity to put in even better lap times. Willem van der Vorm is one of those who has decided that, very likely, okay, this first half of the session, I have done what I wanted to do, I have achieved what I wanted to achieve, but now it's time to move on to stage 2 of my strategy and put in new and even better laps. Henry Hassid, now this lap looks like it will count, and it's a 1:36.779. That elevates him all the way up into P1. The Kessel Racing driver, 6 minutes off the clock, means that he has put in the best banker lap of all, because obviously, while you still hope that you will improve later on in the session, it never hurts to be at the sharp end at any stage, because you never know. Red flags, all sorts of things which can throw your plans off kilter. It's always good to be at the very front in case anything happens. Henry Hassid, he's going once again. Christoph Herney as well. There is the 136 car that is Alexander Nussbaumer, he of the Go Motorsport helped racing team. He is currently in the pits and biding his time as we follow the 162 car. That is Christoph Hörny, and we already said he had a very, very good sector. Second sector also good, no track limit warnings. He's currently P4, but he's looking to improve, and he is going across the line, and it is an improvement indeed. P1, 4 tenths or almost 5 tenths to the good. A 136.296 means he now heads our timing screen, having edged this driver, Henry Hessid, going once again, but not quite to the same level and not quite to the same speed on this time around. And, well, he dives into pit lane, and that means this challenge for the time being subsides. Someone else who is going quick is John Dillon, as we see the team work on the 122 car of Andreas Rizzi, currently P9 and currently stationary in the pit lane. As we pick up the next drivers who are going for quick laps, and that is John Dillon. We already mentioned his name before. The first sector was excellent. Let's see what the second sector does in terms of coloring on our graphics. The first one was purple. The second one is just a few moments away, and it is a personal best, but overall that means he's not on trajectory to take pole position away from Christoph Hörny, but he is certainly looking to improve. Currently P5. Dave, this is always critical, getting the track limits through this chicane perfect, and he nailed it.
Yes, he did, and I have to say, John Dillon, who has been for a number of years in the Ferrari Challenge, and he's a driver that has really, really promised much and continues to make promise. Indeed, was on the podium yesterday. The win in Ferrari Challenge Europe has eluded him, but it's got to come soon. This weekend, being coached by none other than Matt Griffin, who is a hugely successful driver in his own right, of course. And John Dillon, you just see over the years what being in the Ferrari Challenge can do for you as a driver. You know, your racecraft improves. John Dillon is such a good driver. Really looking forward to what I think will be his first race win in Ferrari Challenge Europe to come very soon.
Yeah, you wouldn't bet against him, would you?
No.
Another one that you wouldn't bet against is the Ghost of family, and Thomas is one of those, and he hasn't set a meaningful time yet, and, well, you know, he makes the first one count. It's a P2, a 136.891 right off the bat. And dives deep into that corner, which is probably means that this lap is not going to be good. Sorry.
No, don't be. I was going to say that Thomas Gosler missed out on the first round at Mugello because he's a hugely competitive individual, and he was actually in a qualifying flight because he has he races in glider competitions as well. So, but he's back now as we look at the local star, Nico. This is Tibor Valint, then the local driver, and Manuel Gosner also improving with a personal best through Sector 1. The order is currently Christoph Hörny, then it's Thomas Gosner, then it's John Dillon, Motohiko Sasaki, then it's Michael Martin and Ken Avon, Willem van der Vorm, von Skeltermar, Tibor Valint and Andreas Rizzi, the 10 drivers of the 13 that have put proper lap times down on the chart for us.
Absolutely. We've just entered the second half of this qualifying session. Just over 10 minutes elapsed. Manuela Gosner currently at the very bottom of our timing chart, but she is going for an improvement. I don't know if she actually went out on yesterday's tires or if she immediately goes onto a new set, and whatever she did, she puts it onto P7 on her first time around, and we throw the graphics for her father, Thomas Gosner, onto our screen. He finishes the lap, and that is looking like an improvement, I was going to say, and good thing I waited for it, but it still comes through. A 136.144 puts him into P1, and he comes up on the Henry Hessid car, and I think that means that whatever he had ambitions for this lap probably means that they're over early. The advantage of that being in a what is overall not a good situation. At least it happens at the beginning, and you don't stress the tires without no return. As we briefly saw Giorgio Senaggiotto, head of the Reparto Corsa Ram team, who's talking to Manuel Gosner, but I'm sure he's also talking to Thomas Gosner.
Yes, he's had a long established relationship with the Gosner family. And look at this, Nico, from John Dillon. Sector 1 purple, Sector 2 purple. He will be buoyed by the success he had yesterday, and this looks like it's going to be a very good lap from John Dillon. I'm hoping there are no TLs against his name as he goes second fastest. He's still a tenth and a third down on the previous best time from Thomas Gosner, but nonetheless, it's looking good for John Dillon. It's also looking good for Manuela Gosner, Nico.
Yeah, absolutely. And she is really stressing, and she is entering that final sector just a left-hander, and then she will go through that right-hand king and out onto the start-finish straight. There are the start boxes. There is the timing line, and there is P1 for Manuela Gosner with the first into the 1:35, so 1:35.909.
The sweet nothings that Giorgio Sonagiotto was whispering to Manuela Gosner worked, Nico, because she has delivered a P1 time, and there is Sergio to his friends, and he has made sure that Manuela Gosner, representing the Ineco Reporter Corsa Ram team, goes P1 for now, Nico.
Absolutely, and the track is very busy now. All drivers except for Michael Martin are out on the track, and that means track space is critical. Alexander Nussbaumer, one of those currently not figuring high up the order, but very much figuring low in the sector times, and you can see that by the color coding in our graphics. He is throwing the car around the turns. One more left-hander, one more right-hander, and then he's onto the start-finish straight. Timing line is very early here on this straight, and very early across the line. Alexander Nussbaumer, P1.
Again, Alexander Nussbaumer is proof that when you're successful in a race, when it comes to the next time that you're in the car, it really makes a difference, in my opinion. And Alexander Nussbaumer being successful yesterday, having had a torrid qualifying session, he just took advantage of things during the race. He was successful in the race, and now we're seeing that pace in the qualifying session to set the grid for race 2 as Manuela Gosner tries to respond here, and does respond by taking 2.5 tenths, as near as makes no difference, out of the Alexander Nussbaumer time. So with 6 minutes of this session remaining and Henry Hassid now going to P1, it's all to play for, dare I say.
Oh, absolutely. It's the sweetness of the Ferrari Challenge qualifying, where you can almost bet that at some point in the second half of the session, the times will come tumbling down, and we see just that. Personal improvements virtually all across the board, all the drivers pushing now, this sensing that this is the opportunity to make the most of it.
And there is Matt Griffin, who I was talking about just a few moments ago, driving coach to John Dillon. Now, John was right at the top just a few moments ago, Nico, and proving how competitive he is in this qualifying session. He's relegated to P5 as we ride on board with Willem van der Boom, who is another driver who will want to improve on his P9 position. And here comes von Skeltermatt across the timing line now. He's out of position. He improves a couple of places, goes up to P10. It's Henry Hassid from Manuela Gosner, Alexander Nussbaumer, then it's Thomas Gosner, John Dillon, Christoph Ernie and Andrea Rizzi improves and goes to P7. The notable absentee from the top spots of qualifying, in my opinion, is the local star Tibor Valint.
Tibor Valint, and I would also add Motohiko Isozaki to the same list. They're now currently running P8 and P9. It might just mean that they left their pit stops a little bit later, and they're just one lap later in their progression, but we definitely expect both of them to move up the order. But with 4 minutes and, well, 35 seconds or so remaining, it's now or never almost for those two drivers. And they have to hope that there is no red flag or any other interruption to the qualifying session, because that really would put a dent into their strategies.
It would be a proverbial spanner in the works, would it not? It's Henry Hassid from Manuela Gosner and Alexander Nussbaumer and Thomas Gosner. They are the top four at the moment. Von Skeltermatt is improving personally. You can see that by the blue colour on Sector 1 and Sector 2. Alexander Nussbaumer trying to go for it again as well. But this could be a good improvement for von Skeltermatt then, who wants to move from his P11 place. He's got Alexander Nussbaumer and he's got, I think, Tibor Valint right behind him. Or is that Alexander Nussbaumer? It is Alexander Nussbaumer then, and von Skeltmar rounding the final turn now. Is this going to be an improvement from his P11 position? It is only one place up to P10. He lost time in the final sector. Alexander Nussbaumer, P3 for the moment. We've got 3.5 minutes remaining. Is anyone going to dent the Henry Hassid time, who I think is also on another improvement?
Yeah, I was about to say, the most likely candidate for the moment is Henry Hassid himself, who is pushing again, and he's trying to improve and stretch his lead a little bit as he's going in through the chicane, which opens the second, or is in the middle of the second sector. Now that long-winded hairpin, if there is such a thing, and now he heads towards the timing line. And again, a very, very good purple second sector as Manuel Agostner puts in a good time. Tibor Valant has moved it up to P3, so he has vaulted quite a few drivers. More work to do for him if he wants to repeat his previous success from this season, but P3 is certainly a good one. Henry Hassid, he is trying to move and put some distance between himself and the other drivers. Lost a little bit of time in the final sector, but again, new overall best time from Henry Hassid.
As we see Dr. Stephen Earle, a Ferrari Challenge competitor, watching on as the drivers are out there qualifying in Copichel. I was talking to Henry Hassid last night, and he was saying that this track he really likes. And, well, proof of that is the fact that Henry Hassid has gone quickest, and is quickest by some 4.5 tenths over this young lady, Manuela Gosner, who is trying to improve. However, Sector 1 was not where she wants it to be. The car looking just a bit wobbly into that chicane, so this is not going to be a brilliant lap, I don't think, from Manuela Gosner, and she may choose just to relax a little bit and build momentum for the next lap, which I venture will be her last lap, because we are down to just 1 minute and 40 seconds remaining in this qualifying session, the session that is led by Henry Hassid from Manuela Gosner, from Andreas Rizzi. Then it's Alexander Nussbaumer, John Dillon, Thomas Gosner, Christoph Herning, Motohiko Isozaki, Willem van der Vormen. All of a sudden, Tibor Valint back down to P10 again, Nico, and Manuela Gosner, qualifying is done.
Yeah, and she is only the second driver to dive into the pits. Everybody else still out there, everybody else still looking for an improvement. Christoph Herning, one of those who is still trying and still pushing. Another one is John Dillon. And there is the Christoph Herning car, I believe.
You would believe correctly. Christoph Herning, who is currently 7th fastest for Zenith Scuderia. And that, to me, looks like that Christoph Herning is going to bring the car into the pit lane, Nico.
Yeah, doesn't attack the apexes with quite the verve that he did when he set his fastest laps, and I think he will indicate right. No, he's going to go for another one and sets himself up for another go in the final attempt at improving from P7, climbing up the order, as you say. This lap time he just completed really didn't figure. Not a lot of movement right now, not a lot of personal bests indicated on our timing screen. Is that the calm before the storm, or is that the calm before the calm? We will find out.
Well, yes, we will. We have, any driver that wants to cross the timing line, including John Dillon, he's going to get away with another lap because he crosses the timing line with 9 seconds remaining. Make that 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and this session is effectively over for any driver that's not crossed the timing line. There are drivers that have done that. One of those I noticed was John Dillon, so he will be able to potentially improve from his P5 place. Andreas Rizzi, who's currently 3rd fastest for the CDP D&C racing team. And there we watch that car. Anyone showing any colourful sectors, Nico?
No, but we get the first drivers who have seen the checkered flag, and Tibor Valant, P10, Motohiko Isozaki, P8. Those are race winners already from this year, and it just goes to show how competitive the Coppa Shell is here in the Ferrari Challenge Europe. You're a race winner one day, you're down in P8 or P10 the next day. It's just those minimal margins. If you don't get quite the traffic situation on the track, if you don't quite feel 100% with the car one day, all of a sudden you find yourself on row 4 or row 5. And I'm afraid that for anybody who's not in the position that he or she feels like they are, I don't see quite a lot of movement possible. Henry Hassid and Manuela Gosner, they are both already in pit lane, so they won't do anything about their times, but equally I don't see anybody challenging them for the row 1 start.
I think you're absolutely right. I think with regards to the sharp end of qualifying, we are done. John Dillon, his Sector 1 and Sector 2 were not worthy of even completing Sector 3, so he brings the car into the pit lane. It's a P5 start for John Dillon. It's a P1 start for Henry Hassid. It's P2 for Manuela Gosner. And here we can see the Henry Hassid car then driving for Kessel Racing. And as I said, in my conversations with him last night, he was saying that the track is very much to his liking. It's one that he really considers it very, very technical, and those are the tracks that he performs best on. And Henry Hassid, well, he knows how to pedal these cars to success, that's for sure. Here comes confirmation of the classification from our qualifying for our Copa Shell drivers. As the cloud just begins to look a little darker overhead, dare I say that. Our qualifying sessions for all of our categories are done and dusted, of course. Copa Shell get merely 20 minutes within which to qualify, and in that 20 minutes, Henry Hassid made the most of it. He goes from P1. Manuela Gosner, a good quality P2. Then it's Andreas Rizzi. Alexander Nussbaumer, yesterday's race winner, ahead of John Dillon, Thomas Gosner, Christoph Herney, and Motohiko Isasaki, ahead of Willem van der Vorm. Tibor Valent, he'll have some overtaking to do, as will Von Skeltermar, Ken Abe, and Michael Martin. Then they confirm the final places of our qualifying from Copa Shell. From Nico and from myself, thank you so much for watching our qualifying sessions. Please make sure you join us for 3 scintillating races to come this afternoon as Henry Hassid receives his Rotiform Pole Position Award from Nico and from myself. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye for now.